The lockout tour. Getting caught up on my baseball news. Story pops up. Bam! The headline is, Rob Manfred has a plan. Tell players they've lost billions and build their trust in him. What? Consider my interest peaked. He's begun speaking publicly in regards to the potential storm on baseball's horizon. The next collective bargaining negotiation set to begin after the 2026 season. But anyone who doesn't know how this works, the skinny is. Collective bargaining is renegotiated every 5 years, okay? It's basically the league's constitution that breaks down how revenue sharing is going to happen and how economically we're going to protect players. So it's kind of like the document that informs how the game is going to change or not change. And then that document is binding until there is another renegotiation. We had one at the end of 2021 into 2022. There was a lockout almost a little bit into spring training. Now we're gonna have another one in 2026. Rob Manfred got on this investors call, which the Braves are owned by a publicly traded company, so therefore they're the only ones who publicly release their financials. All the other 29 teams don't. That's important to know. It's rare for a commissioner to go on a call and share this information, especially in a call that's being recorded and is available to the public, of how you're going to approach the next CBA. I think I have 5, maybe 6 points here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go point by point, the things he tried to say, and I'm gonna try to very clearly demonstrate how what he's saying is either a lie, misrepresented, or just stupid. I don't know how else to say it. I've been giving him a little bit more props lately, but some of the stuff he was saying are just generally doesn't make any sense. And I'm here to show you why. Point number 1 is a free agency deadline. There would be a point in the winter, within weeks of spring training starting, is the last day you can sign free agents, and then there would be a dead period before you could start doing it again. Okay, as a media member, that would actually make my job a little bit easier. There's something to cover there. And what it does for the teams, the same way that a lockout does, is it creates a deadline where they have leverage the whole time. There's this clock ticking where if a team doesn't get a player, so what? You still have a team, but if a player doesn't get signed, they're screwed. One side gets a lot more leverage, the other side gets absolutely nothing. Players benefit from that, 0. There is no benefit. Sure, they would probably want it done. It would not light a fire under the team's butt like it would the player. Prime example of Rob Manfred wanting something that benefits him and his owners and doesn't really help the players out, which is odd considering what case he tries to make in his next 4 points. Point number 2, this is one of my favorites. Revenue sharing and salary cap will make players more money. So, this was his quote. They could be $2 billion plus richer if they decided to equally split the game's revenues with owners some 20 plus years ago, and suggests MLBPA leadership does not want to deliver change. Now let me explain this just a scooch for you. What he is referring to was a deal put forward by the commissioner's office to do a 50-50 revenue split and have a salary cap. So you guys will get 50-50 no matter what if we do a salary cap. So what he's saying is it will guarantee money. Because right now the revenue split's about 50-48. I've talked about this in the past. The goal is to get to 50-50. But right now, if I'm the players, I want to have more of the revenue than the teams because they're not ever operating in good faith. And then what he said is the players would have made $2 billion more had they taken that deal. That's only true if that 50-50 split applied to current team valuations now. Technically, if you take math like that, sure. So here's the things that he left out that make everything he just said stupid, as if taking that deal back then would have been a good idea. It wouldn't have been. The players made the right decision. If you remember, they said nah, and then the World Series got ended. Here is the problems with that plan, Rob. 1, there is no independent audit requirement. In order for a 50-50 revenue split to happen, the players would have to know exactly how much revenue there is. As of right now, 29 of the 30 teams don't tell you. So they're like, hey, you're just gonna trust me, bro. This is how much money we made. Okay, billionaires, you're really good at telling people how much money you made and being truthful. They would have found ways to avoid it. What Rob says all the time is, hey, the other leagues do it. Well, you know what the other leagues also do? They constantly fight with their owners about what revenue is, and there still are. Players saw what happened in the NBA and NFL, where revenue-based salary caps led to inevitable ownership maneuvering and frequent fights over what counts as revenue. They were constantly like, well, TV's not revenue. It's not baseball stuff. And that's why baseball doesn't do it. There's so many clever ways to do that. So there's no transparency and there was no clearly defined rules for what revenue is. The last thing, which drives me absolutely crazy, is there's a bunch of ways to also downplay revenue. There's a bunch of ways to say, hey, we're not profitable. And I have a bunch of examples and I can't wait to get these off my chest. One, I just experienced this with Amazon and Twitch. Twitch.tv, which I'm streaming on right now. Every time they're about to do some shady thing, they say, guys, we're not profitable. But they're not profitable because the way that the hosting works for the servers is AWS. They are charged hundreds of millions of dollars a year by a company that is also owned by Amazon. The whole thing is Amazon's keeping the money in this ecosystem. There's no money going anywhere, but they are just charging a company so that they can say it's not profitable. Movie studios do this. They have like the prop house and the catering and everything's in-house, and then they just charge the movie studio or the movie itself a bunch of money so that the expenses go up, and then it's not very profitable, so they don't have to pay the actors as much. Everyone always does this. So teams would do this the same way. They actually already are. Here's a prime example. The Dodgers, under Frank McCourt, the last owner, split the team from the stadium and the parking lot operations and charged rent to the team, charged the team to use the parking lots, artificially increased expenses so that profits were lower. So you know why? He could keep it. They would do it in this case too. So Rob, no, when they propose it, because they're going to, just pay attention. We have to see all the financials and have a third-party auditor look at the financials of the revenue to figure out what it is. They won't do that. There needs to be public reporting, and you have to set clear definitions of what revenue streams we're going to be using, and those cannot change. Those things need to happen, and you'll notice they will not happen. Next up, he claims the MLB PA players don't want to facilitate change, meaning he's like, guys, players, your PA, they don't care about you at all. Who takes that job for fun? What are we talking about? He says explicitly that he wants to talk directly with players because he thinks leaders don't want change or their best interests in mind, like paying them more. He's trying to drive a wedge between the guys making the most money and the guys making not as much money. Classic union busting behavior. And he is de facto saying, you make more money with the salary cap. More people make more money with the salary cap. It's not true, but sounds great. So in order for that to be true, the owners would have to want to pay players more. You guys are in charge of this stuff. Like, you're the ones who do the paying. How is it the PA's fault that you are constantly fighting them? Like, you could pay players more. You could figure out a way to get the guys at the bottom paid more, but you don't, because that's not what you want. So don't act like you're out here with players' best interests in mind, because you're not. So he says top 10% of the players make 70% of the money. This is true and sounds really bad for the majority of the league. I agree that that type of inequality is too big, but to say the PA isn't actively working to remedy the situation is just a lie. Last CBA, what were the things we fought about? Pre-arbitration bonus pool. Guys with 0 to 3 years of service time getting extra money based on how well they play. The players, what did we say? Can we get $250 million so we could pay those guys more? The league countered with 10%. And what number did we end up on? This is what caused the lockout for so long. This is why we went into spring training. We ended at 50, guys. Tell me again, Rob, which side wants to pay guys, younger guys, sooner? Us or you? Save it. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Also, the players fought to raise the minimum wage up $130,000. And they got it. So they raised the minimum wage and they fought for pre-arb pool, and you guys fought against both things. So which one wants to give players more money? Which one doesn't?
I can't hear you.
That's what I thought. There's another comment from him. The fifth point he makes. The PA is losing players money. Quote, my first deal where I was chief negotiator in 2002, we were spending 63% of revenue on players. Manfred said, today we spend 47% on players. Yeah. You are the one actively changing that number. That isn't the PA, that's you. You did it. This comment's really funny for a lot of reasons. I need to bust out the whiteboard. So here's the claims he's made. We're gonna try to make this make sense, all right? In 1994, he said we should have taken the 50-50 split, right? So he said, had we taken this deal, we would have gotten $2 billion more. Then he says, in 2002, the players were making 63% of revenue. Interesting, Robert. Had they taken this deal, they would have only made 50% for those 8 years. So what this tells me is the players made the right decision. You literally proved yourself wrong.
Can't hear you.
So what are we doing? Then he said, and now they're making 47%. He says this to illustrate the point that because that has dropped 16%, the PA is letting the players down. There's a tiny piece of truth there, but you gotta remember, the person saying it is the reason. So even though he's like, hey guys, it's gone down, the PA isn't as strong as it used to be. Yeah, that doesn't make me want to listen to you anymore because you lied about this stuff and then you said that thing. You've proven that you are actively trying to ruin revenue for players for the last 23 years. So why would anyone trust you to have their best interest in mind? I have a last point to prove that he will do a lockout, and that is something he's been very clear about before. Lockouts are when the team locks the players out. Strikes are where the players walk out. So this was not initiated by players. It was initiated by the teams or the league. The league only does that to maximize pressure immediately. It's a leverage tactic. It is a coming out hot tactic. And that's the only way this guy operates, right? He never operates in good faith. He is a lawyer. Hey, we can come up with a deal that is mutually beneficial. No, he wants to win and he wants more stuff at the end. And for me as a human being, it's just gross. It's just gross. But let me just explain how not in good faith this man and everyone around him, including the next guy who's going to take over for him, is going to be the exact same way. So don't think it's going to change in 2028. Here's a prime example of something that happened in the last lockout. There's something called the Joint Rule Committee, okay? That are supposed to vote on rules before they go in. That committee is made up of 4 players, 1 umpire, and 6 people from the commissioner's office or owners. So if you're doing the math, that is an automatic majority to the league. I wonder if the players are ever going to be able to say no to something and win. I wonder. The answer is no. There's been 6 votes. Every single one of them has been either 7-4, where the players like, we don't like this, and the league said, we don't care, which legitimately has happened. So it's either been 7-4 or 11-0. So if the players go, hey, we don't want this thing, we're gonna fight it. Doesn't matter, it's going through anyways. So what's the point of the committee? It's this facade of we're taking input from the players, but they don't have to. There's nothing to force them to do it. Like they don't actually have to listen. They can act like they are, which is what they do, but they don't actually have to do it. Everything he just said is exactly the same as that. It's fake. This last thing, I'm gonna leave you with this before we head out of here. He wrapped up the investor call with this. We had sort of a purposefully mysterious process that we refer to as the Committee on Economic Reform, and purposely mysterious in this sense is that not everyone needs to know exactly what we're doing all the time, despite what the press wants. Ah, yes, Bobby, you saying we don't have to tell you really makes us trust you. Keep it up. You're good at this. So in conclusion, gaslighting, expect it, fans and people at home. He's gonna come for you too. He's gonna say, look how rich these guys are. They're too rich. But always pay attention to what he doesn't say. Notice if there's any time he says anything, if there's anything included that keeps him and the owners accountable, there never will be. There's never anything included in a proposal that is any sort of restriction on them. And that tells you all you need to know. Let me know in the comments what you think and how you think it's going to play out.